came in is one of the exits. This is another one here. I'm going to ask everybody to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance Thank you and welcome to the January 15th meeting. First order of business is department reports. Have the trustees reviewed the reports?
Yes, I have.
I need a motion to accept the reports as stated.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further questions, concerns? Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Thank you. Okay, next order of business, Independence Day fireworks display. Resolved that the Board of Trustees approve a contract with Legion Fireworks Company, 10 Legion Lane, Wappinger Falls, New York, 12590, for furnishing and conducting a fireworks display on July 3rd, 2019, with a rain date of 7/5/2019, in the amount of $15,000. A 15% deposit of $2,250 is due at signing of contract. $12,750 is due immediately following the display. I need a motion to accept that contract and to authorize me to sign the contract.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead. I'll second.
Any further discussion, question? Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Okay. Next order of business is the continuation of the special events permit application. Has everyone had a chance to go through it?
I have.
I have, but I have that as 14. Do we have a different agenda?
Have it as a,
Which one are we using?
I only have one.
which one? Okay. No. Just have it. Thank you. Okay, Local Law 1 of 2019, amendments to Chapter 180 taxation. Whereas an introductory local law titled Amendments to Chapter 180 Taxation was introduced before the Board of Trustees of the Village of Monroe on December 18, 2018, and whereas upon duly notice, published and posted, a hearing was held on said local law on January 15, 2019, whereat public discussion was heard concerning the merits of said local law, and after hearing from all those present wishing to speak and acknowledging that no written comments had been received, the Board of Trustees declares that the public hearing was closed. Now therefore be it resolved that the introductory local law titled Amendments to Chapter 180 Taxation of the Village of Monroe be and hereby adopted on January 15, 2019 as Local Law 1 of 2019 of the Village of Monroe. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Next order is completing the secret process for Local Law Number 2, 2019, amending Chapter 200 zoning to allow for adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the National and State Historic Registries of Historic Places. Whereas on October 16, 2018, the Village Board of Trustees introduced a local law that would amend the local law, the zoning law, to allow for the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the National and State Registries of Historic Places. And whereas the Village Board of Trustees is the only agency authorized to amend the village zoning law and is therefore the only agency authorized to act as lead agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, known as SECRA. And whereas the board caused a full environmental assessment form, FEAF, to be prepared and determine the action to be an unlisted action, as it does not meet the threshold for either a type 1 or type 2 action. And whereas the board has analyzed the potential areas of environmental concern associated with the proposed action in accordance with procedures set forth in 6 NY CRR 617.1.7, implementing SECR. And whereas the board consequently finds that the adoption of a local law that would allow for the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state registries of historic places will not have a significant impact on the environment for the reasons set forth in the EAF narrative hereunto attached. Now therefore be it resolved that based upon the foregoing, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Monroe determines that adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state registries of historic places in the Village of Monroe will not have a significant adverse effect upon the environment, and the environmental impact statement will not be required. And be it further resolved that the negative declarations is issued pursuant to 6 NY CRR Part 617 of the implementation of the regulations pertaining to Article 8 State Environmental Quality Review Act of the Environmental Conservation Law. This type of, title of the action is a local law to amend the zoning to allow for the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state registries of historic places. It's a unlisted action. It's a negative declaration. It was considered a negative declaration, no. Description of the action is a secret resolution adopting a negative declaration for a local law to allow for the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state registries of historic places within the Village of Monroe. The local law would be applicable to all existing buildings within the Village of Monroe that are listed on the national and state registries of historic places. I need a motion first to accept that negative declaration.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Thank you. Next order of business, local law number 2 of 2019, amending chapter 200 zoning to allow for adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state historic registers of historic places. Whereas an introductory local law titled amending chapter 200 zoning of the Village Code to allow for the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the national and state register of historic places was introduced before the Board of Trustees of the Village of Monroe on October 16, 2018, and whereas a duly published and posting hearing was held on said local law on November 8, 2018, whereat public discussion was heard concerning the merits of said local law, and after hearing from all those present wishing to speak and acknowledging that no written comments had been received, the Board of Trustees declared the public hearing closed on November 20, 2018.
Mr.
and-
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's a mistake. There, it should be amended to read that written comments were received and reviewed by the village board. I apologize for that oversight.
That written comments had been received. The Board of Trustees declared the public hearing closed on November 20th, 2018. And whereas after reviewing Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form, the Board of Trustees determined that this was an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, secret, completed Part 2 of the EAF, and it issued a negative declaration dated January 15, 2019, pursuant to the secret regulations, requiring no secret action. And whereas a review of the record revealed the absence of a referral of said local law to the Orange County Planning Department, OCPD, which failure was remedied by referral to OCPD, and its response date dated December 15, 2018, which response found no evidence of intermunicipal or countywide impacts and recommended approval as a local determination. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the introductory local law titled amending Chapter 200 zoning of the Village Code to allow the adaptive reuse of buildings listed on the National and State Registry of Historic Places of the Village of Monroe should be adopted on January 15, 2019 as local law number 2 of 2019 of the Village of Monroe. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any questions? Any comments? Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Next item is the local law 7 from 2018. It's the floor area ratio proposed legislation, which refers to a percentage of the area of a building lot and what could be used for a gross floor in a construction environment. We've been pitching this around for a while. One of the issues obviously goes into the size of the lot in relation to, the size of the home in relation to the lot. And in our case, we had the maximum lot on our chart was 20,000 square feet. And when we apply the schedule, the proposed schedule of 27%, the math results in a 5,400 square foot home. So the concern that this board has had and has been struggling with is the calculation of these ratios, meaning that if the footprint of a parcel of land is 100 by 100, and that's 10,000 square feet, I would go right to the chart here, and it would tell me somebody that had a lot size of 10,000 square feet could build up to 3,700 square foot. And depending on how that fits on that lot, obviously acknowledging the setbacks and the side yards, the front and rear, we want to be cognizant, and we want everybody else to be cognizant of the fact that we want that to be respected in relation to the community itself. So this is a legislation that we felt is important to get done. I don't know, as everybody's, bless you,
Thank you.
been dealing with this, if anybody has any continuation. We did ask our planner to go through it and to give us some recommendations, should she have any, and we're waiting for that as well, but I figured let's put it out there now, so at least everybody's had an opportunity to understand what this is, and you all to have an opportunity to
Mhm.
opine on it.
Mhm.
Dory? anything?
My only question is that we get some clarity for properties with in excess of 20,000 square foot lot size. It seems to me that a property larger than 20,000 square foot, the floor area ratio should be determined by that particular square footage of property multiplied by the FAR, which I believe is 0.27.
That's right.
So I'd like for there to be some sort of verbiage in the law that clarifies that.
Anything? Carrie? Carrie, anything?
No, no.
Okay. Yes?
I would just note that for the public, to understand that this local law would not apply, if adopted, to site plan approvals that have already been issued. Okay? And it states that in the local law.
In the local law. Okay. So we'll continue that, and we'll wait for our planner to get back with us. Thank you. Okay. Next piece is the special permit event
Special event
application.
Mhm.
Has everybody run through their packet?
Yep.
Dory, I'm going to start with you. And everybody probably want to take some notes.
With questions and comments regarding the special event application? Okay. So I do have a couple of questions regarding this. The first is on page 2, Part 4, Policies, item number 3. It says the applicant agrees to be present for a pre-event and post-event site inspection if requested. Requested by whom? Requested by the applicant, requested by the village, any of its departments? I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay.
The next thing that I'd like some clarity on, there's been an addition of a $1,000 security deposit
Page?
to,
Section 21.
thank you, yes, section 21 on page 4. A $1,000 security deposit that needs to be provided in the form of cash or certified check. So my first question regarding this is, what has led to this addition? Has the village or any property located within the village where there's been a special event have any of those properties experienced any loss related to an event held there that's going to require this $1,000 security deposit? It seems to me that now the application fee is going to be $1,100 as opposed to $100, with $1,000 of that refunded upon the satisfactory return of the village property.
Okay.
My other question regarding that is, will 501c3s be exempt from the $1,000 deposit? Or will they at least be exempt from the form of the deposit? Could they leave a credit card in place of a cash or a cashier's check? I really don't think that a 501c3 is going to be able to come up with $1,000 if it is. Mm-hmm. And my last question has to do with the list of businesses and/or property owners who will be impacted by a road closure. I'm unclear as to why the approval of this application would be contingent upon these property owners agreeing to the street closures. As it stands up to today, the village decides which streets are closed and not the property owners. I also think that, I'd also like to know what would happen if one or a certain number of businesses or property owners did not sign the application. I think that could be a real problem in holding up approvals, and a lot of events that we have in the village could potentially be hung up because a business or property owner doesn't want that to take place. So those are my current questions and comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just also was wondering about the road closures, and I know that in the past, we also have police presence and what that would cost.
So,
I know we don't always have to have them at, depending on how much we close a road for something. I know certain things we close just between the two ponds.
I have none.
sorry,
I have no comments.
Karen?
I have a couple also. Trustee Hool, you touched on the $1,000 deposit, which is a concern of mine, especially for our nonprofits. The other one, right in the beginning, application procedures, section 3, it's not clear. The applications should be submitted 30 to 60 days prior to the event, or they won't be considered. I think what needs to be taken into consideration is the time that it needs to come to the board as well. So if you're receiving it 30 days in advance, that's not giving enough time for approval, if they have to take the appropriate actions to get everything in place, make their deposits. So I think that needs to be looked at a little bit closer. And there are a few things in here, just going through the events that we've been through in our time on the board, that I find are almost very restrictive. And I feel that it might turn people away from having events, and which still makes up Monroe in our community. So, and I hate to see that happen. So I'd, we can go over item by item, but I don't feel like this was indicative of something that belongs here in Monroe. I feel like there are a lot of rules and regulations that, have we ever had an incident? And of course, I want to make sure that we're insured and everything is in place. But I have gone through the process with several vendors and nonprofits and, people holding 5Ks. And just the paperwork alone, we had, I'll give you an incident for 4th of July. We had nonprofit vendors that are having difficulty securing the county licensing. So they can't sell their wares, and they can't use that event as a nonprofit event and a fundraiser any longer. So there are a few things, like I said, just coming at it from that end, that I just don't feel that the policy as a whole is representative of our our businesses here. Our businesses, our nonprofits, and our community. If somebody wanted to have a block party, you know, they're gonna have to come up with $1,000, you know, deposit to hold an event. You know, I guess everybody has a different opinion on block parties, but like I said, that's something that's very restrictive, and I think it sets a precedent for us as a community, and I'd hate to see things like that, events like that, be restricted.
Okay. All right, well, my threads are quite similar. I've marked it all up. Whatever happens in the village bounds, we're insured. But we do have to abide by the rules, which include the laws that state if someone is required to receive a license to sell food from the Department of Health or something like that, it has to happen because there's an exposure, you know, of somebody selling food that maybe isn't prepared right or maybe isn't being held, you know, right, and stuff like that. So that's important to recognize. I do understand, though, to your point about it seems an overreach in some regards. I mean, there's an applicant here that comes every year for his event at the Y on village property, and I think if he were to look at this, I think he'd probably say, man,
I'll look someplace else.
I'll look someplace else. So I think that's important to recognize, you know. So I think what has to happen in short order, like right away, because we're in a new year, 2019, you know, events are gonna start happening, and we need to get this thing processed and secured and adopted in some form. So I'm gonna ask each one of you to send your comments in writing to me.
Mhm.
Let's say today's Tuesday, Friday, okay? And let's get this ready for next meeting, okay?
You want those emailed?
Yes, please.
My other question here regarding this, would this take place of the current applications in place for the events that we currently hold? We have a
What?
separate one for Carnival. This would take the place of that.
That would be the blanket, yeah, I would
So
think.
those would all.
I do know that we had gotten a hold harmless agreement from our insurance carrier, and I thought somebody had looked at it recently, a vendor, and said, I'm not signing this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really understand it, but okay. So let's get it done, right? All right, next piece was the acquisition of Roscoe Smith. Okay. Now, Roscoe Smith's property has been on this board's mind for, and we're committed to acquiring the property. Council has drawn a resolution to that effect. The last meeting I attended at the applicant's, at the planning board meeting, a statement was made with regard to the dams. Me being sentimental and everything else, I wanted the property left alone as it was, including the dams as they stood. But the applicant had spent better than 2 years trying to get the dams lowered at the request of the Village of Monroe. So the applicant is willing to leave them should the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, and/or the Army Corps of Engineers allows it. My goal was to try to find that out. It's been cumbersome to do that. The applicant is going through the final stages of his approval process for Bridges at Lake Park, which is at the Roscoe Smith estate. Our acquisition would be a portion of the frontage on Lakes Road. We would acquire the house, the ponds, or what was left of the ponds, all the artifacts that are on the property would be given to us, and then hopefully through some future opportunity, we may be able to acquire 2 additional lots to close out the full area, the width, right up to the road that enters into the property and the project. But that has not been secured or anything. But we do have something on the table. But I am concerned about the dam because it was said to me at the last meeting that the property may have issues with the dam that may cost in excess of $500,000. And it was recommended that I go back to the minutes and the process and the consultants that were hired by the applicant and see what, in fact, that said, so that I could be clear about what I was asking of this community and this board to adopt. I can't find that number. And what I plan to do, or I want to state now for the board's information, I plan to go back to the engineer that, there were two engineers at different times, one in 2007 and one in 2008. Both did a study. I plan to go back to one of them and ask them for a site visit and a follow-up on that study to understand exactly what is we're getting into. And then I still have to go back to the DEC and ask, can I leave this thing alone? Should that repair, whatever's needed done, is completed to everyone's satisfaction. So that's a process. We are committed, though, to acquiring the property. You know, for full disclosure, I was the trustee who, in 2014, made the motion to rescind the offer to accept it, because at the time, I didn't think financially it was a good investment. It was really, really a deep number. And within a year's time of that event, I came to think very differently. And I've been on that crusade since to reacquire that property and to maintain the legacy of Roscoe Smith in this community. Roscoe Smith's family gave us this building. They gave us Museum Village, gave us Smith Clove Park, developed the ponds we know as Crane Park with some other very incredible men. So we need to honor that, and I think it's one of the biggest jewels in the village. Actually, I think it is probably the biggest jewel in the village, as in ill repair as it is right now, and it needs our attention. So we are committed to that. We just need to make sure that we do all our homework before we commit to this, and it needs to happen soon. So just for your information, that's what this is about. For the board, does anybody else want to chime in on any of that?
Just to echo your sentiment that preserving the Roscoe Smith property and house is equally important to me, as I think that his legacy endures today, and we can't let that property go to disrepair. So,
I agree. I grew up driving past that all the time, and I always look at this picture when we're at the meetings. I love the water wheel and just the beauty that, well, it used to be. I know it doesn't look so nice now, but I know it can be restored, and I look forward to that.
Carrie?
No comments, I agree.
Okay. So that's to be continued, hopefully in short order. Okay, new business. First piece was Anderson Place, Elm Street traffic issue. We have on Anderson, if anybody doesn't know where that is, that runs perpendicular to North Main Street. It's the first left-hand turn if you were going up on North Main to head back to 208. And it's known as Anderson Place, and as soon as you make a right-hand turn, you're onto Elm Street. The planning board has advised us that they're getting continued complaints about the commercial traffic that is loading and unloading commercial trucks on the street, and has now turned it back to us to take some action. For the board's information, they would like to see some signage imprinted into the road. They'd like to see arrowing and more signage in that area, because if that street is blocked, you just don't get through it. And there's a mix of both business and residential use, so we need to deal with that. I also believe part of that should be a little more comprehensive so far as, and I've asked the engineer to conceive the idea that maybe Anderson needs to be one way. Maybe Oak Street needs to be one way. Maybe they should funnel out onto North Main as opposed to, so if you're coming down Anderson and you make the right onto Elm, your business is on Elm. Coming out to Elm, or making a right onto Oak, and getting back to North Main. If you're coming from Elm on the other direction, you can do the same exact thing, but then you're turning back onto Oak. That's the farthest travel you can have. Or you can go to Oak, and Oak, if it's one way, allows you to get to the two businesses that are on that street, but then you have to come back out Oak and then go straight up the hill and you're out. Oak Street, at the narrowest point, I don't think is 20 foot wide, and it's a 2-lane road.
so it shouldn't be.
Grade is very, very poor. Somebody suggested to me the other day that it was a private road. I never knew that.
Wouldn't have a blue sign if it were a private road? Not necessarily.
I just heard this the other day. I haven't even had a chance to investigate it. I don't think it's private, but this is worth to take a look.
So are you suggesting that Elm Street be two-way for a certain portion and then one-way between Anderson and Oak?
You cannot go that far. You come one way. You come onto Anderson, you come around. It's almost a right-hand turn on Anderson.
Oh,
I
yeah, that would
myself
make
had an
sense.
accident on
That would make
road.
sense, yeah.
You understand? It's
Yeah.
very narrow. You
Mhm.
turn.
Mm-hmm,
It's almost a right turn without stopping.
yes.
So it's something to think about. I reached out to the engineer and asked for some help and guidance for us to have to review with. But it's something has to be addressed. The planning board has written to me about it, and we need to move forward on it. You know,
I would consider speaking to the bus garage also.
The what?
The bus garage, because you just get set up down there and it stops and you can't always pick somebody up on one side of the road. And if it's making it a one-way, it becomes complicated.
Well, no, not really. I mean, if you're coming down Elm,
Mhm.
or say, if you're coming down Anderson and you're turning onto Elm, you can traverse the whole Elm, picking up all those kids.
So you can come down Anderson, is that what you're saying?
You come
Yes.
down Anderson,
Mhm.
right. You come across, you go all the way across Elm, you come out of Elm,
Okay.
right? And I think that's the only road, to my knowledge.
Or I misunderstood, I thought you
yeah,
said you
yeah.
can only go from Elm to. or from
No, what I was
Anderson
saying
to-
was, from the one side, you can come straight through.
Okay,
The other side, you come up to Oak.
got it.
Just a thought, I don't know. All right, so we're waiting to get some feedback from the engineer, and we'll go from there. The second piece is Lois Lane, Fawcett Drive. Fawcett Drive, Timber Hills is a subdivision that was put in, I want to say probably, I guess either concurrently or before or after Fawcett. I'm not sure which came first, chicken or the egg. But they run right into each other. Both subdivisions meet at that juncture. There's no property addresses on the Fawcett side. So I'd like the board to consider changing Fawcett to Lois Lane, to run it from A to B. I think it would aid both in the fire department and the police department. I just think if somebody said, I'm on Fawcett, I wouldn't know.
Where that is.
Where that is, as opposed to Lois Lane, which we know. I just think it should run from A to B.
And no one lives on Fosse, it's
No
just-
addresses. No, I checked into it.
Sergeant Kraus, has the naming of Fossa Drive provided any type of problems with the police department responding to anything? Uh, so Fossa Drive doesn't even come up? Okay. Mhm.
Thank you.
Was it named after somebody?
Well, it was one of the names of the developer, Timber Hills, the company that built that project, is Foster Construction.
And do they have any connection to the village of Monroe or the town of Monroe?
Guess to the town. I don't know. I mean, if there were addresses on it, I'd say, geez, we've got more of a quandary.
That
but-
would be a bit more difficult, but there are none.
So I think we should look at cleaning that up and figuring out whatever necessary pieces we have to do to get in place. Does the board agree with this?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Next piece, South Orange Family YMCA presentation, please. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Speaking to the mic, or?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Okay, all right.
And if you'd like to sit down, Ira, you're welcome to do that.
Thank you, Neil.
Yep.
I'll hang in as long as
No,
I
yeah,
last.
you can take the mic with you, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Ira Bizdansky. First of all, thank you all,
You're
for the
welcome.
opportunity for the Y to come before you, and thank you, Mayor and trustees. Part of what I would like to do, because I know some of you are new to this, and we've been here for a while, but I want to say something and educate you a little bit about the organization. In 1978, I graduated college, and I turned down a job running a brand new store outside of Boston called TJ Maxx. It was the first one. My mother was mad at me for 2 years for doing that. And the reason I did it is I took a job directing a YMCA, actually starting one, south of Boston, at exactly half the money. The reason why I took the job is because I was an only child, raised by a single mom when it wasn't quite so popular. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of a YMCA in Boston that probably kept me alive, kept me out of jail, kept me focused, gave me, positive adult role models. Okay. And I viewed this as an opportunity for me, in today's lingo, to pay it forward. What else would I rather do than to get up in the morning and help change lives? What better way to spend your work? So fast forward 30 years, and I end up getting hired by board of directors of the YMCA of Middletown, who about 6 months prior, during 2009, had made the decision because one key person initially, who's in this room, reached out to my predecessor and said, you know what, the town of Monroe has very little for kids to do outside of the structured sports. It has nothing for families. And, and what's the possibility for our getting a YMCA in Monroe? And that grew. It grew from 1 to 3 to 5. We started having focus groups. A location was determined, the one that we're in now. And the YMCA went through a process with the planning board at that time. And as a part of that process and its approval, it was made very clear that if it worked, I say that because this was truly a leap of faith, just as it was for me to not do TJ Maxx and take the YMCA job. Right? Used to leaps of faith. But if the Y worked and we were to expand the YMCA because of community demand, then we would need to come up with the second means of ingress, egress. And obviously that's why we're in front of you. Not long after, in early 2010, I spent some time with the then town supervisor, Sandy Leonard, and a few people. And we considered a road that goes through the adjacent property that eventually gets you out towards Route 208. That was the thinking then. That was going to be the plan. And unfortunately, Sandy lost. The gentleman who succeeded her, there was a lot of, you live there, a lot of political turmoil. Anyways, the process went on. Finally, 2 years after that, Mayor Dwyer's predecessor, Mayor Purcell, approached me and said, listen, why don't you look at crossing the trail? And it was in the context of the development, Crystal Run, and the whole thing. And originally, I wasn't supportive, I gotta be honest. But as I kind of studied it and learned about the trail crossings all over the county, all over, it's like I had a greater level of comfort. The process began. We had plenty of conversations. We had some with this group of folks. And we definitely had a number of conversations with the planning board. It was indicated at that time that the planning board, your planning board, would be very, very supportive of that as a plan. We moved forward, which a key piece was to work with the county. And we were very fortunate that two legislators, Michael Amo and then Myrna Chemnitz, really, really championed our cause. And they worked it through the committee process. We began first with the head of recreation. I think it was Commissioner Rose at that time. about what we would need to do. It worked through the committee processes of the county, and it ended up in front of the county legislator, a 19 to zip vote in favor of our doing that. It doesn't happen that often. So we moved along. We did the traffic studies. We came in front of the planning board in a workshop setting to get feedback, which we responded to. And then Gary Parise, right? Parise? And the planning board had indicated some safety concerns, which we responded to, and you're going to hear about those in a couple of minutes. And so we move along. In the spring of this year, I had a meeting with Mayor Dwyer, and it was indicated that maybe that the support was not there to go this route. And he brought in Supervisor Cardone at that time, and the four of us met, my board president and I, and Mayor Dwyer and Supervisor Cardone. And he said, well, maybe we can re-examine what actually was the original plan. And we did that. And I understand, we understand the town has to protect its interest for that property. And essentially what was offered is something that, quite honestly, wouldn't even pass muster with your own planning board, because it was a 5-year license. What are we going to do in year 6? You know, we just, remember, YMCA is a not-for-profit organization. Okay, and we've had many leaps of faith from when we originally came here on February 7th, 2011 at 5:35 in the morning. When we opened, I was praying and holding my breath that this community would respond. It did, and it's continued to, you know, and that makes us feel great, you know. A, we're invited. B, we deliver. C, the community responds in an incredible way. And now, so we took another leap. We bought the building. Now we own it. And so that was yet again another leap of faith. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to get you up to speed. And so essentially, after some discussions with the town, particularly between the attorneys, we said, well, let's come back to what our plan was. We never completed it. And that's why we're here. And I hope that you will truly understand the impact, all right, and how blessed you are to have a YMCA. I'm not saying that because I'm the CEO of the organization. I'm telling you that 2 weeks ago, town of Warwick, okay, approached us for the 3rd time. I've spoken to Michael Sweeten so many times I've lost track. There are communities all over Orange County that would die for what you have, okay? And all we're asking is the opportunity to serve more of your residents and your kids and families. And so let me give it up, introduce Ross Maselli, tell you a little bit about. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I just want to take a couple minutes, I'm going to keep it real short. I just want to take a couple minutes and educate the board, the village mayor, the trustees, just on some of the things you may not know about the YMCA. We know we have a lot of classes that serve people for exercise. We have a lot of kids programming, but there are a lot of groups that are impacted by the YMCA, one being BOCES. So we house BOCES so they can conduct ESL classes for the community. We service a large amount of residents that live on North Main. We work with ARC, AHRC, to help them meet their recreation requirements, allowing them to use our gymnasium. We work with Inspire for kids, special needs preschool. You guys are all familiar with that. We give them slots, designated time slots throughout the day where we allow them to meet their PE requirements. We work with the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. We help the Girl Scouts get their badges. We're an overnight location for the 100 girls to sleep at the YMCA in a safe environment. We work with the Monroe Police Department to keep that safe. So there's a lot more on the table besides the members you see here supporting the Y. There are a lot of groups that are impacted with this decision and what's at stake. Not to mention, we work with the Monroe Woodbury High School to help them meet their education requirements for volunteering. We work with Crystal Run Village, Inc. Michelle Berneri was instrumental in that. Every week, Mondays, they come in, they do all of our recycling. From there, they bag it up, they go to ShopRite, they work with them. At the end of the year, they come, and I'm happy to announce, thanks to Michelle, they have given us $2,000 for 2018 that will go back into the community and touch lives and help those in need. So with that said, the YMCA brings this community together. We do this through family programming, our community nights, through our 5K that we plan to work with you guys on to get that permit. We are here for families and your residents. It's a lot more than just putting out program. We listen, and then we respond to the needs of the community. We do our Kids Night Out programming. You guys familiar with the Kids Night Out? It's a parent drop-off. It gives these parents a chance to go out in the community and be able to, enjoy their time while their children are partaking in crafts, physical education. Thank you, Ms. Felice, for that. Just to circle back. So the financial assistance piece. We work with our staff, who I'm proud to say, over 95% of our 100 staff currently, which will soon grow with this project, partake in that campaign at some level, our board of directors, and we work with the business community. Last year alone, we raised over $160,000 that got pumped out for financial assistance to our camp, Miss Irene Rumsey here, and to the local community for kids programs, memberships. We offer a laid-off policy. Those that have been laid off over the time, we'll give you a 2-month membership. So there's a lot of good that comes into this.
Ross mentioned the food bank.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you. You guys are going to mention that stuff at the end. But anyway, with that said, we do a lot of good. We collect food for our Father's Kitchen. We help the Monroe Police Department do their toy drive back in December. So it's a lot more than these classes that are going on at the Y. We impact a lot of groups, a lot of other businesses, and a lot of associations, and we change lives, like Ira said. So just one more thing. Currently, we have 100 staff with this. Our goal is to grow our staff right off the jump to 50%. We did some quick calculations. Between payroll and direct expenses, we pump $1 million into this community. Thank you. I'm just going to stop talking, but at this point, I just want to thank everyone that came out. I really appreciate you guys being here, and this is a true testimonial of how we change lives and impact people. Thank you for your time. I want to introduce our engineer, Tom Ollie, who will run you guys through the project and talk about safety measures.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Ollie. I'm a professional engineer, but more importantly to Sophie and to the YMCA of Middletown, I'm a member of the board of directors. I am not here as a paid consultant tonight. I'm here because of my love and belief in the YMCA, and I'm here as a technical expert because, as Liam Neeson says, I have a particular set of skills. Nowhere near as deadly as his, but it's because I have certain knowledge in the area of land development, traffic, and because of my position on the board of directors, along with our president of the board of directors tonight here, Kevin Preston, we're here to fill in some of the other pieces. Now, one thing that Ira, because it preceded Ira, I think, as early as April of 2009, the YMCA presented different alternatives for secondary access to the village planning board. They were directed by the planning board to investigate those as a requirement for any future expansion. And as Ira said, from the get-go, if the Y was successful, we were looking to expand. Now, the Monroe community has been overwhelmingly supportive. And back in 2011, 12, that Ira started those discussions with Supervisor Leonard at the time. And just to walk you through, in 2009, early 2010, we received the site plan approval to place a Y on Gilbert Street extension. And it involved the building of a new parking lot, improvements to the intersection of Gilbert Street extension, and of course our renovation costs. And your YMCA invested $3 million into the community. $2 million in building improvements and nearly $1 million between soft costs and site development. So it was, as Ira said, a big leap of faith. And it was your support brought us just into 2 short years to the point where we wanted to start looking at the expansion. So the hang up at the time was, boy, how are we going to get across the rail trail? And that's when the discussion with the town of Monroe began, and this plan was developed. And this culminated in a plan that actually was September of 2014, in which the town of Monroe was actually looking to do more extensive development of that O&R property than just providing some access to the Y. And unfortunately, because of that, it got bogged down, and that's when Mayor Purcell stepped forward. And as I had said earlier, back in 2009, April of 2009, 5 different alternatives were presented. Well, the planning board concluded, along with the traffic consultant, their engineers, that crossing the rail trail, the Heritage Trail, was the superior alternative. But the political issues of crossing the trail, we thought at the time, were going to be insurmountable. But when the village came forward and offered support for crossing of the trail, this plan was developed, which would actually provide for a cul-de-sac, a turnaround bulb at the end of Gilbert Street, a termination of Gilbert Street, so you wouldn't be able to go down to basically to the rail trail and make the right and come into the backside of the Y parking lot, but it would actually force the traffic through the parking lot. And then there would be the second means of access using the westerly part of Gilbert Street extension, which was terminated in 1939 by the Erie Railroad. Okay, and in reading back through some of the village board meetings, I think it was John Carl that noted that sometime in the 60s is when it stopped existing as a maintained village street. However, two businesses that are located on either side continued to use that paper street, as it became, for access. So our plans included the improvement of that paper street, seeking an easement from the village that would have the maintenance responsibilities on the YMCA, but as a means to prevent cut-through traffic
There would be bollards that would be installed, a raised pedestrian plaza right at the end of Gilbert Street at that turnaround. We would also incorporate different things into the parking lot to slow or calm the traffic. And we would also construct a sidewalk from the Y along that the western part of Gilbert Street extension all the way out to the traffic light that is committed to by Smith Farm by the Bank of New York Burger King intersection, the Gilbert Street intersection. So, so during that time, or for about a 2-year period there, we participated with the village's consultants on various alternatives of upgrading Route 17M. So we got hung up in the process of the village going back and forth with DOT, trying to figure out exactly what to do with the Gilbert Street intersection, because the DOT is actually looking for longer range improvements that would actually start by the Crystal Run building, the old post office building, extending north. And because of litigation and other things that were bogging that process down, we approached the DOT just to basically cut free of that process, just so that we could at least get our permit and move forward with the expansion. We got caught in this limbo. So we finished our plans, I'm gonna say May, June of last year. Had a couple different reviews with the New York State DOT, and we received an approval for those plans in September of last year, September 2018. One concern that I'm sure everybody has is, what about safety? And let me just flip forward here. And there are street and rail trail crossings throughout the county, throughout the region, throughout the country. New York State DOT actually has an office that just deals with bicycle trails and rail trails, pedestrian trails, and they have construction standards for those crossings. We've met with the Orange County DPW, because as Ira said, we got approval from the county legislator for a permanent easement. And that permanent easement, by the way, is restricted to the YMCA. If we were to sell the building and move out, that has to be closed, and nobody else can use it. It can't be used for any other commercial operations. It has to be terminated. So this is the county's plan for the crossing of Golf Links Road over in the town of Wawayanda. And if any of you are familiar with Golf Links Road, County Route 50, it's a very substantial thoroughfare. And through there, it's probably 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. We would be constructing the crossing to the same standards that the county is requiring on that highway crossing. Such things as a raised concrete median to prevent vehicles from entering the trail. That would include bollards, include warning signs and stop signs for users of the trail, warning signs along the highway, warning the highway users of the trail crossing, highway grade crosswalks, thermoplastic crosswalks, detectable warnings for people, that they know that they're stepping out onto a roadway. We would also be constructing emergency gate in both directions for emergency vehicles to get access to the rail trail. So that's one more point of access. And so it would be built to the New York State DOT standards to ensure the safety of both the motorists and the trail users. Now, there's been some discussion with the planning board about cut-through traffic. And just to touch very briefly on that, for a vehicle to go from southbound 208 over to Route 17M, they'd have to turn into Gilbert Street Extension, which is a fairly sharp turn, a little S turn coming in. But they would no longer be able to go straight through because this will be barricaded with bollards and the raised median. They would have to turn into the parking lot, drive through the parking lot. Now, I can tell you, and I can't tell you as well as you can tell the board, that when you make that right into the Y parking lot, you almost come to a complete stop. And then when you go to make the left turn to head towards the main entrance, you're almost at a complete stop. And then when you get to the corner of the building, if there's any traffic, you're slowing down to no more than 5 or 10 miles an hour. And you're going to go by the main entrance of the building. And eventually, with the expansion, we'll have a stop sign there too. But people don't always pay attention to stop signs. But now you got to make a U-turn to come back to the Heritage Trail crossing. There'll be another stop sign there. Then you have a stop sign out at 17M. It's a very circuitous and a very slow route. I promise you that somebody's only going to do it once or twice and realize that it's no quicker, especially since this past year DOT added the dedicated right turn lane from 208 onto 17M. So it doesn't make any sense that somebody is going to take a route through a busy parking lot just to get back out to 17M. Now, if they were going to cross 17M at Gilbert Street, they have to cross 2 lanes of traffic, where if they make the right at the old post office and make the left at Burger King, they're only crossing 1 lane of traffic. So we have not only taken into account that circuitous route, but we're going to add a raised pedestrian crosswalk in here that's going to force people to slow down. You know, it's a 6-inch high. The thing winds up being almost 20 feet long, but it's a speed hump. It's a speed table. It's designed to, and it's an approved, DOT-approved method to slow people down. The safety of our members is paramount. We don't want any of our members to be at risk in that parking lot, so we're going to take every effort. Now, if it means after operation we find that we have to make some adjustments by including additional speed humps, particularly the removable ones, because during winter time with snow plowing, you want to remove them and not plow them up, or even deploying some of our staff for the purpose of maintaining traffic. We have surveillance cameras up there. We can see what's going on. So we are in the position that we can make adjustments to it. So we have gotten caught up in a whole series of unfortunate events that we have. And it was suggested that we first cross the rail trail. That was not deemed to be a feasible alternative, but the town, going through the town-owned our land, was feasible. Well, we got mired into that not becoming a feasible alternative. We came back, and the village board at the time offered their support for our crossing of the Heritage Trail. We got the support of the county legislature. The county legislature, in their minutes, have said that this thing is going to be subject to the review of the Orange County Parks Department and the DPW to ensure that the access is safe. They also put the provision in there that we are the only ones allowed to use it, that it's not, if we were to sell the building, nobody else gets to use it. the traffic improvements here, well, I differ with, Ira was concerned about the routing across the Heritage Trail. As a professional, I recognize that it makes the most sense as far as safely providing for the traveling public. Because right now, and with the O&R property, it doesn't alleviate those people that want to come to the Y and are heading towards North Main Street, Scotty Monk Street on 208, and making the left across southbound, not only the southbound lane coming from Scotty Monk Street, but the southbound lane coming from Blooming Grove and turning in. And the left turn going back out across the same way. People recognize that it's a less than safe arrangement. It doesn't meet any standards for construction of an intersection, so people are extremely cautious using it, and that's why there hasn't been any accidents there. I mean, Sergeant can probably tell us better, from the police reports. I'm sure there's been a few, but not as many as you would expect. But coming in from Gilbert Street, 17M, it's going to provide safe ingress and egress to the Y property. Now, finally, as I said before, you have two property owners that are also using that property. And we're very cognizant of that. And what we propose as part of our construction is that we would maintain both the laundromat and Wally's access to that now Paper Street portion of Gilbert Street Extension. We were right at the point when the rug was pulled out, if you will, of going back to them, because back in 2016, we went to them, gave them our preliminary concepts, and both of them agreed. Now, Wally's had some reservations that there were certain conditions that he wanted met, but actually wrote to the planning board saying that they were supportive. And it was just about that time that we were going back to them to say, hey, we've taken your concerns into account. We want to preserve your access. We want to make it safe. And we think with, for the ice cream stand, they actually stand to make a very significant improvement on their property, because that sidewalk that we would build is going to go right past their establishment, and by cleaning up that access around there would actually give them a nice sitting area, near the intersection, if he so choose. That's up to him, but that's where we were. So we're sensitive to our neighbors. We're extremely concerned about the safety of the public and our members, and the plans that we've put together. Well, it's been, as I said, an unfortunate series of events that we keep going back and forth like a ping pong ball, but we're here, we're looking for the board to support a resolution giving us permission to construct that access. Thank you.
Okay, before I open up for public comment, I would just like to note a couple of things on this particular issue that must be said in representation of the board. First off, I want to thank the Y for coming tonight. I appreciate your presentation and all your efforts in that matter. But I also want to address the fact that this board 5 members, absolutely appreciates and respects and encourages all the efforts that the Y had put forth in this community. Make no mistake about it, we support their model that's probably over 100 years old. We support your mission, we support your programs, the outreach that you make in this community, the investment that you mentioned you've made in this community financially, and in the community where you are located, you've done your homework and you've responded with programs that fit your need, the community's need. And we recognize all of that. But additionally, I also must tell you that this board also respects and understands and is concerned about all businesses in this community, all outreaches, all nonprofits, all clubs, scouting, and so forth that work in this community. Because all of it makes this community, not one, all of it. And as such, we have an awesome responsibility here to make sure that all of our residents who are members, who aren't members, who have family that are or aren't, that travel that road, that participate in any way in this community, we have to, by responsibility, by oath, to deal with whatever comes our way. And I just wanted to say that because we did receive a bunch of mail. Obviously, everyone's very passionate about it. Obviously, you've taken the time tonight to come here, and I appreciate that, and this board does too. Some of it was passionate, some of it a bit ugly, and that's unfortunate. But we're here, it's our job, and we've got to deal with it. But I just want you to recognize that, and I'm going to open the floor up for anybody that wants to make a comment. I would suspect, and I'll take any advice to that end. If there's any differing opinions, I'd like you to raise your hand so that we have a full texture of this event. And those that think they'd like to speak, to come on up to the microphone. I don't need your name or your rank. Just come on up and say hi, and we're here. So at that time, please, anybody who would like to speak, raise your hand. Sir, come on up. Just give us your name, please.
My name is Vince LaSalle. Last Friday, I was at the Y, and we took a video of the potential disaster there. A bus came, a school bus was letting off kids. Somebody was making a left turn, crossing the double line, and somebody was coming down from the yield. I just asked the board, we have the video, look at that. It says everything. You can look at the pros and cons, but when you see the safety issue, I feel as a village resident who pays taxes, that's the overriding factor, safety. You look at the Y, the Y does a great deal, but there's a safety issue and it has to be addressed. Look at the video. Thank you.
I'm sorry, where is the video posted?
We took it on a cell phone and we could send it to any of the board members.
Yeah, you can just send it to mayor.dwyer, that'd be
Okay,
awesome.
thank
Or to
you.
clerk, send it to the clerk.
Just to, view it. Thank you.
Anyone else, please? Sir,
How's it going?
very good,
My
yourself?
name's James Levitt. Ready?
Yes, sir.
I've been a member of the YMCA in Monroe for about 6 years. The YMCA has been an integral part of my growth as a person, as an individual. I've spent many hours working out there and bettering myself for the latter part of my high school career, etc. The staff of the YMCA has always been supportive, a pleasure to be around. I honestly consider many of you to be my family. Various trainers have guided me to making the most out of my workout while remaining safe and respectful of my body. In addition, I also briefly worked for the YMCA in their after-school program, and my time spent at the YMCA, both as a member as a part of the staff, has given me a well-rounded view of the impact that the Y has. So as Ross stated earlier, the YMCA is not simply just another gym. It is much more than that. It is a community space that welcomes and supports all who come through the door, regardless of age, size, whatever. It's a place that you can meet like-minded people, a place that allows, I already said that, people of all ages and sizes to come together, focus on fun, constructive activities. I recall you saying that it certainly helps you to stay out of trouble, to keep you alive, to keep you focused on, meaningful activities to better themselves. So, the YMCA is a safe place for anyone and everyone to come feel part of a community. I recall this on multiple occasions, really. I've come in and there's been a basketball game or a volleyball game taking place in the gym, and it's not just, 10-year-old kids against 10-year-old kids, boys versus girls. It was a diverse group of adults, children, boys, girls, round people, skinny people, just having fun and not really concerned about, other things in the world. Just to have that safe place to come in and to participate in a competitive event, but also be supportive and to focus on the fun activities. It's a site that I personally don't see very often, whether it's in, my school or out in Smithfield Park. And the basketball, it's all kind of, tight-knit groups of, just friends and whatnot. So it was nice to see people really coming together from all places. In the recent past, kids of all ages and people of the community have come together to help bring the new aquatic center to Monroe. And we were all, I think I speak for all of us, we were all really excited to have a pool at our YMCA. And we are extremely excited for that. I don't want this to be taken away from my community, and I do believe I speak for most of us in the room. Please don't drive the YMCA out of Monroe. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Susanna Devine. I am happy and pleased and proud to work at the Y. I am confused, however. We keep on hearing that the DOT and other organizations have approved these plans. They make sense. The county legislature has approved them. Why is it that there's a speed bump here with the village of Monroe? I'm trying to understand what documentation you're using to say that it's not a good thing to have a road. Can you explain that to me?
Would you like an answer?
Yeah, I'd love one.
So, this board, as I said in my opening remarks, has the responsibility to deal with everyone's safety concerns.
Right.
As Mr. LaSalle had mentioned earlier, it is about safety, right? That's the guiding measure behind this. When this board became aware of it, when I met with Mr. Badansky and Mr. Ali, one of the things that come up is there were things that I didn't have a good handle or appreciation about. And I asked him if he would give me an opportunity to meet with my board and to review it. So we did. He was gracious, he gave me copies of everything, and I met with my board, and the reservations were as follows. The first one had to do with the one Mr. Ali addressed, which was the bypass. Now, I don't know who lives where, and I don't think that really matters. I think if anybody has ever been on 208 coming home into the village, meaning toward the diner, at 2 o'clock on a Friday, you're up on 208, meaning you're before the one-way road. It's going to take you 6 to 7 cycles, and I don't know what those cycles are. They could be 45-second lights. I don't know. But whatever they are, you're sitting there. By the time, and let's assume for a second that you may have an understanding of, in fact, that you can cut through, or you learn about it through Facebook or something. You can get by. You're amped up a bit. You got to get to Chase. It's 5 o'clock, and you got to get to that bank. Your goal is 208 and the mobile station, Chase Bank. The interim is of no consequence, but you're stuck in this traffic. So you're going to turn onto Gilbert. You're going to go into that parking lot, to Mr. Ollie's point. You're going to come around this truncated U-turn, then turn out to 17M. Make a right turn, and you're at your bank. I guarantee you that you're going to beat that spot on 208 to get to that light, just to get you to make a right turn at the light. I've seen it additionally where cars that are coming down are trying to beat the light and are turning onto 17M and don't fully make it. Now they're impinging the ability to traverse westbound on 17M for that very reason. And I, in my mind, and this board has said the same thing, are concerned about people coming out from the Y, coming onto 17M, and not making it fully through, now stopping traffic there. That was the one thing. That was just a bypass. The second thing is the rail trail. And I won't disagree with Mr. Ali about this. I would even guess. I heard somebody on Facebook said there were 18 crossings. Now, I've been around this block a long time. and I know most of them, if not all of them, except for the Chester Academy, proceeded the trail crossing, okay? Everybody else existed. This was a Dairy USA here. You had farmers' roads cutting through the trail, up on a ramp and down, and so forth. The one in Goshen, same way. I was part of a group, a nonprofit group for many years that ran a bike race through Goshen and so forth, and we had a piece of it on the trail. We monitored that crossing with persons on both sides for the very reason we're discussing here tonight. So we were very concerned. I did get about a dozen letters of support about maintaining the integrity of that. Last year, we happened to plow the rail trail in the village area. And then we got a letter and was scolded by the county Department of Recreation for actually cleaning it because they don't want it touched. They said people want to cross-country ski, they want to do whatever, please do not touch it because then that changes the exposure or liability on that trail. So I said, okay. So that brought us to the second piece. The third piece being that by measure, and Mr. Ali could probably weigh in on this, but from that light, coming 17M south or westbound, you've got Jake's Way back, 2 entrances into Mobile, the laundromat, then the Y. Across the street, you've got 2 at the Burger King, you got 1 at the Tulsingo's Plaza, and you have 1 at the very top that just before the light, God knows why that was ever done, there's an egress coming out from Crystal Run's Labs. So we have all these cuts and all this traffic moving in and out, and now we're going to introduce turning lanes in, traffic coming out, into what I think, and Mr. Ali, I'll defer to him, which I think maybe 750 to 1,000 feet, maybe, from traffic light to traffic light. I go to the gas station at Mobiles. I cannot make a left-hand turn, period. It doesn't exist. What do I got to do? I got to make a right, go into Crystal Run, come back around, and then I have the space and the ability to get back onto 17M going east. So these are the 4 major concerns that we had, and they all, to me, revolve around safety. We've had on 17M, as people come from, say, the ponds and come across that grade at the light, the sight clearance is very poor. We have fatalities on that road. I personally know somebody who was hit on a bike and got thrown 50 feet. On the 17M westbound side, there were 2 young ladies, if I remember, Sergeant Krause, if he wants to weigh in on it, were crossing from the laundromat to go back to either Tulsingo's or to the Burger King, I don't remember which, and were hit and killed. They were home for, I think, college break. Those things concern me. As the mayor and as trustees, we have to do our work, and it's not, as I said in the beginning, it's not about the wise efforts. I can't tell you how impressed I am by everything this board and this community does. No argument, no argument. But having said that, my concern and this board's concern, I'm speaking for them, so when I say me, I mean them. This is something that's been coming up in conversation, is that we have to deal with all these concerns. We really have to weigh them in to our factors. Now, I haven't spoken to the board about the current conditions. I want to just tell you one quick story about a member that you have. She wrote to us and she said that her son, who was having some self-esteem issues, having some other issues, and now he's this totally self-assured, great kid, very popular, good friends, and she couldn't be happier. And she credits the Y for that. I think that's amazing. It's the reason I've done what I've done in my life to help children. Okay, so I get that. And I get that this young man has benefited in the present form of the Y's investment. What I haven't asked, and I'll be happy to ask tonight if the board, if they want to talk to me about it, is in the present form, all you have benefited from the Y's activities. All of you. That's why you're here. That's why you're passionate about this. That's why you wrote to us. I'm puzzled, though, that if the pool expansion were not to happen because the second egress, which is the trigger from the planning board, has to happen in order for this to happen, why is it that you're leaving? I was told by Mr. Badansky, we don't get the expansion, we're packing our toys and we're out of here. I want to know why that is. Can you tell me that?
I'm in no position to tell you.
Okay, so
But
I was told that.
I do want to follow up my question,
Sure,
though.
sure, please.
The DOT plan, did they not have all this information when they made the recommendation?
Absolutely did.
Has anything changed since then? So that's what I'm confused. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I won't dispute that. I
So
won't
are we
dispute
not going
any
to
of that.
defer to the experts rather than
Well-
just the way I feel or the way it seems to me?
Well, you know what it is? No. Listen, I'm not a traffic consultant, nor am I an engineer, as Mr. Ali is, nor am I an attorney, nor am I anybody.
Sure.
I'm just a guy that puts his left shoe on first in the morning, all
Okay.
right? What I'm trying to say, though, is that as a member of this community, I'm listening all the time. And it preceded the Y's adventure across the trail. That intersection, that area down there is always a mess. There's always traffic. Things are always backed up.
Okay.
Okay? Gilbert Street, I remember when they were putting, the Temple property was developing, and I'm gonna possibly be wrong, but I don't think so. Their traffic consultant at a planning board workshop said that he's gonna put a turning lane in on Gilbert to make a right onto 17M. It's the equivalent of maybe 3 spots. We've got Smith Farm Development coming with 181 homes, that I don't know how many cars that's gonna produce. And I'm sure there were traffic studies that counted that into the factor. But they're not there now, nor has Abad operating their temple out of there. I don't know what those impacts will do additionally to what's already, what I think and what I'm hearing from the community as a burden on that road. And I'm not talking about, say, Crystal Run to the 17M 208 traffic light. I'm talking about from Gilbert to 17M. And Mr. Ali, if you could, just guess for me, what do you think the distance is from Gilbert Street to 17M traffic light?
I'd say you're probably correct in your estimate.
Yeah.
But one thing that I just would like to chime in on is that you say that there's been traffic studies and you don't know what the impacts of Smith Farm is. Your planning board and the town planning board has put Smith Farm on the hook to construct a traffic light at that intersection.
As well as Crystal Run, I thought, right?
No,
No, okay,
no,
okay,
no.
all right.
So I want
That's the impacts.
I want to step
Yeah,
down.
Yeah, as I say, I can't validate or invalidate their studies, and I won't try to do that. I just thought it was the most puzzling thing when someone told me they're going to make a right turn lane of 3 cars, and you know why they couldn't put a 4th? Because they'd be in Burger King's parking lot. And it just wrapped my head around it. So we're going to accommodate 3. Get over it. We're gonna give you 3. Accept it, let's move on. And I think this village, I mean, Gilbert Street is probably 180 years old. Short of paving, nothing's improved in that road. As a matter of fact, it almost seems narrower with sidewalks and curbs. And I'm just puzzled by this, and we just gotta keep taking it and taking it and taking it for the good of what is a much bigger picture. Notwithstanding the Y's great work. Don't misunderstand, I'm not minimizing that, 1 minute. But I have to, I have a responsibility. When I'm no longer in this seat, the responsibility will not be mine, and somebody else will make that, I suppose. But right now, it's this board, and I charge them with this responsibility. I am on them like flies on, you know what? I want to know what we're all thinking, what we're all doing. What are you hearing on the ground? What are people telling you? What I've just shared with you tonight is my own personal story about what I hear from people. I bank at Chase. I do not go there anymore. I go to Stop and Shop.
And I'm going to stand down, but I
I'm
just,
sorry.
one last thing. Again, I'm still confused that we're not relying on facts. Facts as proposed by many different committees, many different studies, the DOT. And with that, I want to step down.
Mrs.
but I
Devine,
still
I'm
am
going to say this to you.
confused.
I'm going to say this to you. A lot of what we do in life are science experiments, right? This one's a permanent. This one, we don't get to throw a couple of beakers back and forth and see what the results are, and we're good. And if it doesn't work out, we'll try it again until we get it right. When this is done and developed, it's finished. It's now an integral part of our community, for good or bad. I'm just saying, this board needs an opportunity to find that out. Notwithstanding, the DOT don't live here. They don't commute back into the village at night. They don't travel out onto 17M. They're just reading from studies. And when the traffic consultant says, I'm gonna give you 3 spots for a right-hand turn lane, I'm gonna call them on it. Because to me, that doesn't meet what is necessary. That's my opinion, to your point. These are the pros that we hire and that we have to listen to and so forth, but it's our village, and they have to listen to us. And that's the only reason we're here. If we didn't count, trust me when I tell you, we wouldn't be here tonight. You old folks would be home. We're here because the village has to weigh in on this stuff, on this topic. And unfortunately, there's a lot of pieces that are moving. I hear what the consultants, I hear what Mr. Ali is saying, I heard Mr. Bodansky, and I appreciate that.
Based on fact, not just on a feeling. That's the
Based on
point.
fact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's David Rabbits, and I'm here on behalf of State Senator James Goofus. The senator wishes he could be here tonight, but unfortunately he is commuting back from Albany, so couldn't make it on time. So I'm here. And the senator wanted me to express his full support of the plans for the Y to expand their services here in Monroe, including the road extending onto Route 17M. The Y employs many of our neighbors, but more importantly, devotes itself to creating a healthy, committed, and confident community. And I can say with confidence to this board that the Monroe Woodbury community would be grievously disappointed should the proposed plans not move forward. As we've seen and has been demonstrated, the plan is strong and should be embraced rather than rejected. The senator would like to thank the board for its consideration in this matter, and would like to offer his assistance in any way possible to resolve this situation on behalf of the Y, and more importantly, to the people and community that it ultimately serves.
All right, and let Senator Skoufis know I'll see him Sunday. I appreciate his support, and I'll see him Sunday. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Pete DeLeo. I am the owner of Wally's Ice Cream Parlor.
Hi.
Okay.
How are you guys doing? Thanks to the many residents of Monroe and the outlying areas, I've been in business there now for 25 years. And with that being said, now that I fully understand what this is all about, I gotta be the dissenting voice with this situation. I do not approve of this for various reasons. The obvious one, which we've gone through already, is the safety issue. And I'm not gonna beat that horse. Neil pretty much summed it up as far as the Heritage Trail, the in and out traffic, and whatnot. From a personal standpoint, I can tell you for 25 years, many, many customers of mine have told me verbatim that one of the reasons they frequent my establishment is not just the ice cream, it's the fact that they feel safe. They can go, relax, sit, let their kids run wild, and they don't have to worry about it because it's a serene atmosphere. With the new road, in and out, that changes, especially since the bulk of my seating is on that side, just a few feet away. Now parents are gonna have concerns. What we're gonna get now is a snowball effect. So just bear with me. What's going to happen is if that road opens, those people that are courageous enough to park their cars on my deck side are gonna soon realize that the back end of their car is very close to that new road. So now, when you are leaving, it's not just a simple pull out and I'm out of here, okay? Now you have in and out traffic to contend with, okay? And a traffic light on top of that. So getting out of that lot is not 2 and 3 seconds. You gotta wait for cars that are going back and forth, and we do know, no matter what the studies show, as Neil has alluded to, there will be cut-through traffic, whether minimal or not. That's just human nature. It's going to happen. That being said again, getting out is not going to be easy. Now, the snowball effect from there is people are now going to realize it is not worth the aggravation to park on that side anymore. Now what we've created is I have lost a parking lot. Now let's snowball even further. Where are they going to park? Okay? Let's clog up the other lot. Now it gets a little dangerous on that side. Where else are they going to go? Let's go to the laundromat. They've got space. Well, you know what? That's not fair to him. Because now what's going to happen is going to create animosity towards me that my customers are parking on his property, and that's not right. Most importantly, and please let me say, I hold no ill will towards the Y. I get what they want to do. They are a vital part of the community. They do a lot of good. They frequent my establishment a lot as well, which I'm very appreciative. But I get the fact that they want to expand. Every business wants to. But when it has a direct effect on my business or somebody else's, that's where I kind of have to draw the line. And it almost comes down to, for lack of a better term, and I'm going to jumble this, so please forgive the language, are we going to treat one business as more important than the other? Because if the Y gets what they want, terrific for them. But now I got to suffer. So we solve one problem, but we create another one. So what's the message we really want to send there? That the bigger guy is more important than the little guy? That's a dangerous area for us to be getting into. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Judy Nunziata. I'm the owner of Edible Arrangements, so I'm talking on behalf of other business owners in Monroe. I understand what the owner of Wally's says, the big guy versus the little guy. But if they decide to leave, and mind you, I'm also on the board of the Y, and I'm a member of the Y. So if the Y decides to leave, the businesses in Monroe are going to be affected. Every time you go to the gym, how many of you stop at the gas station? Stop at the diner? Stop at the grocery store? You're not going to do that if the Y is not there, because you're going to be, if you're on the other side of Monroe, you're not going to come that way. So my fear is that if we're worrying about, no offense, and I understand how business is, Wally's business in that sense, well, we're going to be affecting all the other businesses in Monroe as well if the Y leaves, because of the partnerships that the Y has done with me and the other businesses in Monroe. So I do understand what he's saying, but also the business that you may gain from that opening may be even twice as large. So I say that, yes, the safety is important, but you may need to now look at this as past the safety, not that safety is not important, but all the businesses in Monroe that'll be affected because of this. So I am in full support for the Y.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If
Please,
I
Tom.
might, Tom Ollie again. Just through the comments of the several speakers, I just want to make two comments. When I was addressing the board and the public before, I referred to this a couple-year period there where we were participating with the village's consultants. This board paid Creighton Manning a great deal of money to do a study of 17M that included the YMCA driveway where it's proposed. So this is not being done in a vacuum. As there has been a lot of people that have looked at it. As Mrs. Devine said, you know, there has been a lot of eyes looking at it, including the village's own consultants, Creighton Manning and Lankin Tully. We attended many, many meetings with them. We participated in all of their studies. The village's comprehensive plan actually states that the access at this location is desirable. Now, Mr. DeLeo, all I ask is that you give us the opportunity to work with you, because what you've represented as our design isn't our design. We're not calling for cars from your lot to back out into to the driveway. We want to reconfigure it so that it is safe, and at the expense of the Y. We're not asking Mr. DeLeo to fund that cost. We're going to curb the roadway there to prevent the crossing of, the shortcutting through the corner of his property. And we're also asking that we be treated the same way as the laundromat and Wally's on using that piece of town property, the village property. Because Wally's backs out onto that village paper street. So we want to be treated the same way. And we want to make it safe. We want to make it safe and fair to the village, to those property owners, and to the members of the Y. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I wasn't prepared to speak, and I wasn't going to, but I do have a question.
Sure.
Mike, I have three girls that,
Name, please, I'm sorry.
Kim Napier. I have three girls that are members of the Y. They don't go as often as they should because I don't want them as inexperienced drivers to try to maneuver across 208 and all that traffic. So when they do go, they cut through. They go down 17, they cut through the park and ride to be able to make that right. Why was the selection between two businesses to cross over the Heritage Trail and not more to the left of the two businesses, still cross over, but not interfere with two businesses? To make, either way, you're crossing over the Heritage Trail. We do it, when they closed that stupid little bridge for months and you couldn't get to 208, there was multiple cars that crossed that cross and ride back up to 17 over the Heritage Trail. But now the Heritage Trail is an issue and we can't do it. So why can't we have that access to the other end, further end of the YMCA, crossing over the Heritage Trail, not interfering with two businesses, and still having a safer access? And still have the Heritage Trail protection covered. I mean, they do it in Goshen. DOT has said you can cross the Heritage Trail if you do it correctly. You have all the documentation that says we can make it safe. But can't we do it without impeding two businesses and making it safe for everybody? Is it an option?
Are you asking?
Yeah. Why not? I'm up here.
Most times people just wanted to. In full disclosure, I think that was mentioned at another meeting. But I would say this, and I think it's probably important to note this. We are committed to working with the Y. I think what has to happen is you have to be able to sit at the table and look at what you just said as one and two and so, and I get, it's been designed, it's there, it's waiting, it's crying, make me. But at the end of the day, we have work to do. But that doesn't negate the fact that this board is prepared to sit down and to figure out what options there are today and in the future. Notwithstanding the fact that they've said it, and somebody else said it, one of the guests here said it, we don't get the expansion, we're gone. That's to me is non-starter in a conversation. I don't know what's behind that. If that's in fact the case, then I feel bad about that, because I think Russ Maselli said it in one of his emails, because I caught the thread, and I thought there were 8,500 families. I thought Mr. Badansky mentioned, and in your thread it said there's 10,000 members. Now what's impressive, just under. Yeah, which is pretty remarkable. There's not 10,000 people in Monroe. But what's really remarkable here is that the trigger, in the village I'm referring to.
In the village of Monroe.
The trigger for the second egress is the expansion. So we've got and I don't know what the first narrative was, and this is all supposition because I don't know, but whatever the first trigger was that allowed the Y to be there, the second one was the 25% Mr. Bandansky suggested to me was the trigger to require the second egress. So do the math. You got just under 10,000, but for math's sake, we'll say 10. That means 2,500 additional people are planning on coming because of this expansion. 10,000 get to use what everybody's been describing as this harrowing experience on Gilbert, but 2,500 is going to trigger the safer route. Do you see the oxymoron there? I'm a little puzzled by it. So I'm a little puzzled by that, and I'm also puzzled by the expansion, or we're out of here. You people have all gained, from what I understand, both in testimonials and paper that you sent to me and the board, and in phone calls, and in presentation, and in Passion Please tonight. In fact, that you've gained tremendously from the benefit of having a Y in your community. And in the present form, so should there be no expansion, you're going to leave those 10,000 people from the experiences they've had for the past, I guess it's 9 years. So I get what you're saying, Kim. I don't know. I can't answer the question. Maybe that is an alternative, and I'm committed to whatever we need to do to try to help the process, but
But I see all of that as rumors. Well, they're gonna take their toys and leave. Well, we also have.
well, I'd like to say that too, but
and
it's
I
not.
wouldn't- I hope it's not a rumor. I mean, I
No.
think we've raised money and the county's here because we care and we want it to work.
Okay.
We also heard that Mayor Dwyer is absolutely against it. We're
Right.
hoping that that is not a true threat.
I'll
that
tell you a
we're
funny thing.
here.
Yeah, and that's absolutely not true, and that's why I prefaced my
I'm saying.
remarks
So
tonight.
It could be two not truths.
Interesting thing, I met with the Y on Friday last week, myself, Supervisor Cardone, Mr. Ali, Mr. Preston, and Mr. Badansky. We walked out of that meeting with no resolution. 3 hours later, my son's texting me and saying to me, Dad, why aren't you expanding the Y? I got a text message from somebody that works there, it's a friend of mine, and he says you don't want that there. Now, there were 5 people in that room. I could vouch for that man right there. I don't know how that happened, and I don't want to speculate on how that happened. It's sad that it did happen, that now my family is now involved in something that this board is taking up on behalf of 9,600 people. Okay, so I got it.
I just want to stand corrected. It's 7,500 members over the course of a year.
All right. Thank you.
Could I be heard?
Please.
I promised myself I would speak tonight.
Sure.
Just an attorney. I also happen to be the president of the board of the Y. And I can't let a couple of comments go by without commenting on them. First of all, Mayor Dwyer, you indicated that Mr. Bizdansky said, if we don't get the road and we don't get the expansion, we're going to take our toys and go home. That makes it seem as if the Y is threatening, and that is the last thing we want to be seen as doing. We are not threatening anything. But the fact of the matter remains that we came to Monroe at the request of the residents of Monroe. And we came for the purpose of first opening a Y, and we did that. And the residents came back to us and they said, we would like you to expand. It wasn't the Y's idea to expand, it was the residents' idea to expand. And the residents said, we need a pool. This is an essential part of the Y. So we met those needs. We had a capital campaign. We raised $600,000 for a pool. We've borrowed $6 million to expand. So it's not a question of like a petulant child, we say, if you don't give us our access, we're going to move out. That is not the case.
Was that said?
No, you said it. You're gonna take our toys, we're gonna take our toys.
No, I said it tonight, but I said it to the lady that was up here as a response to what I was confused about. There were a couple of people that came up and they asked why, and I said, I have a question, and the one main one that still just churns me is, why would the present form of the benefit of the Y in its current state, benefiting 7,500 people coming in as members, why would that now no longer be a viable opportunity without the expansion? Because we were told by Mr. Badansky at that meeting last Friday, and prior, I've spoken to him, that we're leaving. We're gonna go. And that's all I'm gonna say, Mr. President. I don't wanna debate it with you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we're not threatening, but we're telling you what the facts are.
That's what I'm saying, so you are gonna leave.
No, we're not threatening. We're just saying
You're
that
stating the facts.
we We are stating the facts.
I got it.
And the facts control here, and the facts are that this road, the safety of this road, which apparently is the board's main concern, as it should be, the safety of this road has been vetted by the County of Orange, who voted 19-0 to allow this road to go over the trail. It's been vetted by the Village Planning Board, which has worked very closely with the Y on making this road as safe and as bypass resistant as is humanly possible, and by the state DOT, which has approved the crossing of the trail according to its strict requirements for all trail crossings. We are happy to work with the board. We are happy to work with the board to make this road safer. If the board has concerns about that, we're happy to work with the board. Okay, but for the board to make it seem as if the Y is placing some sort of a threat on the board is unfair to Mr. Bostansky and is unfair to the Y.
Mr. Badansky, please.
I'm going to elaborate a little. Here is the issue, is I mentioned earlier, we're a not-for-profit organization. We don't have the resources. In order for us to buy the building, all right, what Mr. Preston talked about is we had to literally borrow $6 million. Okay. Now, the borrowing of that money is predicated on the pro forma tied to the expansion. Our issue, so this is answering your question very directly. So you're saying, well, why can't you stay and continue doing it? Well, the problem is I now have no funding for the purchase of the building. So now the conversation goes back to the board, goes back to the lender, and I can't answer that question. That's the buy. This isn't something that we're deciding. Is we don't have those resources without the bank. Thank God they supported us and they took the leap of faith for the second time for this community, for the second time. So my problem is, hey guys, we can't do it. We can't expand. We have this empty 20,000 square feet, which was going to have a pool, a multi-purpose room, a senior center, and a large gym to serve more of your neighbors. And now we have no plan. That's going to be a very short conversation with the lender. And I don't have an answer for that. That's the answer, Neil.
Okay, thank you.
So, it's not, we don't retaliate.
No, and I didn't say in the context, and to suggest the toys, let's not get stuck on a word. Listen, I've given you my impassioned conversation here this evening, representing the board. I've told you my interest in the Y and what its mission is and has been for close to 100 years, if not more. That's notwithstanding. That's not what's at question here, and I'm not talking about retaliation. I'm just trying to allow the board to do what is paramount to us, is to take care of these residents that traverse through this village. That's the first responsibility. The second piece of that is that when we're told in a conversation while we're discussing this, in whatever terms or whatever context it was meant or not meant is of no consequence. But when it's said, when you just put it out there, you can't put it back in the bottle. It's said. And when I hear that we're leaving, that adds an incredible burden to these people, because I don't want a cross burning on my lawn. I don't want to hear about that. I am making a decision based upon the rule of law in this village for 9,000 people. And I've got everybody to understand that as best as I can do it in representing this board. They can all speak for themselves. I don't need to, and that's the reason you're here tonight, is to allow them that first hand. They didn't have that the first go-around. You and I and Mr. Ali did it. And then you and I and Mr. Cardone did it. So I've got to do that. You know, I've got to do that diligence. And I would appreciate that opportunity to do that, okay? And you have my word. And all you folks here tonight have our word that that will be paramount in the conversation. All these pieces, notwithstanding all the professionals and all the consultants, we're boots on the ground here. We live in the village of Monroe. I could tell you what's going on at 7 a.m. right there, right outside this building. I could tell you what's happening at 10 o'clock at night over there. I could tell you what's happening at the lake. I could tell you about the knucklehead that's deciding he wants to break a bench seat in our gazebo at 11. I could tell you about all of these things that go on that nobody would ever know about, because everybody's home, taking care of family, doing their business. But I am lockstep with my police department. I am lockstep with my DPW. I know what needs to be dealt with on every day. That's my responsibility. My predecessor will tell you the same thing. This is an awesome responsibility and a big job. I take it really seriously. I get the call at 3 in the morning. We got a flood. We got this. We got that. I got to get out and take care of it. I can't say, you know what, you guys got it, and roll over. I got to take care of it. Now I'm dealing with this. This board is dealing with this. So please respect that, and I respect you for your comments, everybody here tonight for their comments, and you can rest assured that that will be given the proper consideration and the continuation of this conversation. Okay, if no one further? Sure.
It's hot in here.
That's from me, all the hot air from me. Right.
My name is Joseph Simone.
Yes, Joseph, thank you.
And I first want to thank you for the due diligence that you all are. It's not easy. I can't even imagine what it would be like.
Right.
Well, I just on a personal, and I just want to say, I was involved with 9/11.
Sure.
I'd moved up here just about the time there with our 2 children, 5 and 8. So the Y ended up being a home for me, really, the home and the community. I was off from work for a bit, and just sort of, it's been a lot of ups and downs. And through my involvement, through the community there, I'm just grateful to have been restored. Sure. And my family is also. I also look at this, the Y, as being such an integral part. The library is also, I look at the library for me, the Y, the library, my house of worship, okay, the Monroe Woodbury school system. So those are the pillars that oh God, take away the library, or take away the Y, or take away my house of worship, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble.
Right.
So I'm in the Y a lot, and I just know what I'm just getting is this frustration. This has been going on for years, okay? And you know, after a while, I mean, it's just so many emotions that there are. The senior staff, I mean, of just dealing with them, it's, God, you know, we want to take care of, they want to take care of their families, and they want, and just the attention and the involvement in Ira and just the likes. Some resolve here. Some resolve, some action that we're going to take, whatever road or, you know, whatever path we are. But it's going on a long time, and I won't even go on. I park and I walk across, because to me, it's too dangerous and especially at night. So I want to just thank you all for the efforts that you are, and all of you also. This is a family. This is, the Y is family to me. And you know, and the Y in this community here, and the park, and just the likes. Our children grew here, and they are who they are, and I'm just extremely grateful. And I think the Y is a big component of that. And I just, boy, if we could just get this together and just move on, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I
I'm
think
sorry.
somebody else is coming.
Please.
Excuse me, I'm playing hurt a little bit. I'm kind of sick, and I kind of talk for a living. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a mayor. I don't know what it takes to run a town, a community, municipality, make certain decisions like this. First off, this is pretty cool to see. Everybody kind of here, whether you support, deny, it's nice to see that people are passionate about it. I'm a member of the Y. I'm not on a board. I'm not a business owner, but I do understand business. I do it for a living. I think I do pretty well with it. And safety makes a lot of sense. That intersection to get into the Y right now, I'm just going to be honest, it sucks. I hate it. I'm there pretty early on the weekends playing basketball, so I know what it's like. So when I hear a new intersection on the other side, I think it helps safety. Just thinking about it, because I know, living here all my life, coming over the grade that you mentioned, I can't tell you how many times I've had to slam on my brakes because somebody's pulling out of Chase, pulling into Chase, pulling out of Burger King. So I'm thinking another light there or a stop sign might actually kind of control the flow of traffic a little bit better. So nobody's said that, and I think it's
really important that people think about that. I also think it's really, really important to consider that although the Y is a not-for-profit, they still have to make certain efforts to keep that going, to keep delivering to the community. I think this will allow them to deliver better to the community. It's not about making profit. It's not about another business coming in and saying, oh, I need to increase my margins by 5%. It's let me help more people, and by helping more people, I can deliver better to the community. I frequent Wally's a lot, I've never once made the conscious decision to eat ice cream and thinking I was making a healthy choice. To the point of safety, and it's by no means, I'm not trying to contend or get into an argument, but I don't necessarily consider Wally's to be safe. I don't consider it to be unsafe. But I can tell you a lot of times when I'm standing there on the long line, there's kids that are very, very close to the intersection, and I think it's a little scary. Again, I think a light and an intersection there controls that and makes Wally's more safe. And I think it improves the opportunity for Wally's to make more money. And they are not a not-for-profit. They are for-profit, as any good businessman should be. I think it delivers more economic opportunity to the community here, and I think it actually makes the community safer. That's how I feel. Appreciate it.
Could I have your name, please? I'm sorry.
Sorry, my name is Michael Joya.
Michael?
what?
Joya.
Spell it, please.
Gioia.
Oh,
About
that's
as
Italian.
as you can.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, board members. I'm not a member of the Y. I come at this from a little different perspective. I don't actually live in the village. I'm just outside of it. I live on Enrico Terrace, so I'm just on the other side of 208. One of the areas where the Y is proposed possibly having that second egress would wind up sort of in my front door. Mayor Dwyer, I think you hit it on the head when you said it really comes down to a safety issue. The Y is sort of the straw that broke the camel's back here. It's a great thing in our community. It's wonderful that they came here. And they do serve not only the village or the town, but the whole southern part of Orange County. And that does benefit us. They're having this issue because, fairly, to do this expansion, there should be a second egress. Maybe it's not just a matter of solving this problem for the Y, which we should, but solving a holistic issue we have, where there's village and town and county and state roads all interacting not as well as they need to anymore. You know, when that traffic light by the mobile is backed up through 6 and 7 and 8 cycles, I'm the guy that can't get out of my street. So we've got an interesting opportunity here, right? We've got you all, and we've got this situation that's going on in the village, but it affects those of us in the town, and my supervisor is here, and I noticed 3 of our county legislators who all represent us are here. We have a representative of our state senator. This is an important issue, not just for the Y, but for this whole section of our village and town. And what I'm here to ask you tonight is, get a consensus together that will solve this problem not only for the Y, but for everybody. Take that leadership role that you were chosen for, gratefully, in my opinion, and work with all of the stakeholders to try and solve this problem for everybody. Loyal Wally's customer, too.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nobody further, I need someone to entertain a... Please. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Please.
Can you spell it?
So, in answer to your question about another alternative, the town presented the 5-year license agreement to help them move it quicker. And then we also offered to
personal opinion, it's the opinion of not only Mr. Ali, but also the town's engineers, as I understand.
The what?
Yes, the town's engineers.
Oh, the town's engineers?
Yes. During our meeting on the O&R property, you brought that up, and both your engineer, Mark Edsel, and I discussed the drawbacks of it. And to be specific, going north of the Verticon property, there is a huge drainage head wall there, stream. There's about a 6 to 8 foot difference in elevation from the Heritage Trail to 17M. It's only separated by about 50 or 60 feet. So to even conceive of a crossing there, you would have to lower the grade of the Heritage Trail to be able to even physically make the connection. But the stream across from Crystal Run